right. Well, thank you guys so much for being with us tonight. We're excited to get things going with another one of our See Where ACE Takes You webinars. And this one's focusing on the ACE Ambassador Program. So we're actually joined here with a few current ACE ambassadors who are here to share some of their insights and perspectives from their time as an off-campus intern during their senior years of college. So we're really excited to be with them and hear all the good things that they have to say. So before we get to that, just to give you a sense of structure, in a second, our panel is going to introduce themselves and answer a couple of questions about the ambassador experience. Then once they kind of get through that whole routine, we'll give you guys some time to ask some questions for them, get a little bit more specific into all the things that are on your mind. So when we get to that point in the evening, I'll share some instructions about how to go about asking your questions. But for now, I just recommend that you keep your screen in speaker view so that you'll be able to see each panelist clearly throughout the event. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So Brennan, Henry, and Jessica, if you guys wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves, maybe share who you are, where you're from, what university you're at, and then one highlight from your senior year so far.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Brennan. I'm a senior at Boston College right now, computer science major, and then a minor in education, another minor in theology. I'm originally from California. My roommate is from New York, but I'm from California. And a big highlight of my senior year so far has been probably being a TA. I've been a TA for a couple of different classes, but this year more than past years, I've been able to really design the discussion sessions that I've been able to lead. So that's been a really nice experience.
Sweet. Hi, everybody. My name's Henry. I am a senior at Creighton University, which is in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm originally from a small town in Kansas, so I'm not too far from home where I am at Creighton, but I study political science and theology here with a minor in justice and peace studies. And let's see, there are so many highlights from senior year, but in December, I live in a house with 5 guys, and we all got to go watch a couple of Creighton basketball games in Las Vegas right after finals. So it was like a really awesome end to the first semester. Had a blast.
Hi guys, my name is Diggins. I'm a senior at St. Anselm College, which is a really tiny school in Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm an English major, and then I have a double minor in philosophy and American studies. And a highlight from my senior year has definitely been just getting to make the most of time with my friends and getting to just enjoy the school that I love so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys. You guys are making me nostalgic for college. You're making me want to go back. That's all great. So we'll get started with a few just questions from me about, again, the general ACE ambassador experience. So my first question for the three of you is going to be about how you kind of came into the ambassador role in the first place. So what led you to ACE in the ambassador program, and why did you decide to apply for and ultimately join the program on the early timeline?
I can go first. First, just about ACE in general. I knew kind of in my sophomore year that teaching is really where I was feeling called. And my older brother was a senior at Notre Dame at the time, so he recommended that I check out ACE. And in meeting Bridget and Mike and Joe and Sean and Tyus and everyone else that works at ACE, I've just felt like a real care for myself as an individual. And like having that support system is something that's really important to me, especially if we are going to be in like a completely new city starting in August. And so, yeah, that's what really drew me to ACE in the first place, that community aspect. And then for the ambassador role specifically, I really enjoy like talking to people who also want to work towards like closing the education gap and like getting their different ideas on that. More so than I initially thought, teaching is a very collaborative profession. And so like the ambassador role allows you to get to talk to a bunch of other people who are passionate about the same things. So that's why I ended up applying, and I continued support throughout the process from a bunch of people on the ACE team is a big reason why I joined.
I can go next. I never thought about teaching, not once. My dad's a teacher and his dad's a teacher, but it's like I almost didn't even think about that when I came to college. I wanted to be a lawyer. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer, so I studied political science and added this theology thing. And then my sophomore year, a retreat leader that I'd like been on a retreat with texted me and asked me to have lunch. And I was like close with him, but not really. And we went into the dining hall, and he's sitting there and he's like, "Well, what do you think you're going to do after graduation?" I was like, "Well, law school, Paul." I'm like, "Duh." And he goes, "Well, have you ever thought about teaching?" I was like, well, no, but that kind of like sparked this thought then that stuck with me. I went abroad that summer and thought a lot about teaching when I was there, like in a village in Africa. Like we're doing service work. I was thinking about teaching, and then I came back, and then it was like some really important conversations that fall semester of my junior year with members of the ACE team, and kind of just continuing to explore this and talk about it with my friends and my family and the people who cared about me, and eventually decided to like apply for and join the program early because I just knew it was going to be the right decision for me, whether I did it early or late. So kind of my type A personality said, well, I might as well just do it early then while I have the time to fill out an application and don't have to worry about anything like that during my senior year. But it's turned into such an amazing decision to be able to serve on this team and be with these people for an entire senior year rather than just a couple of months before starting ACE. So I've loved every bit of it, but that's why I applied.
So I've always sort of known that I wanted to teach, and I came into St. A's knowing that I came in actually as an education major, but then really fell in love with philosophy, and I wanted to be able to have a little more flexibility in my schedule. So then I sort of started to freak out, like, how do I still teach but get to take all the cool classes that I want to? And I started tutoring for our academic resource center on campus, and was connected to one of the deans at our school who did ACE. He finished up in 2014. And he just really, really recommended ACE to me and connected me with Bridget. And that was back in my sophomore year. And she was so patient. She talked to me so many times over the course of the next year of my discernment process. And sort of like Brennan was saying, I just felt so much care for me as a person. And I definitely felt like it was a discernment process as opposed to like, this is the one way, which I have seen just like manifest so beautifully in my time with ACE so far, that it is just so much care for the individual. And in terms of deciding to apply early, that was very out of character for me. Not because I don't like to do things early, but just committing blind, not knowing where I was going to be was so scary for me. But for me, it was really an ultimate trust fall into God. And I felt like I really needed to surrender to Him in that way at that time. And it's just been such a fruitful experience to be able to say, like, my future is so totally in God's hands and out of my hands right now, like where I'm going to be living for the next 2 years. And that's been just a really beautiful aspect of my prayer life, and getting more and more exciting as finding out where we're placed becomes sooner and sooner. So definitely an amazing decision, and getting to work with Brennan and Henry and the professional team and all the other ambassadors has been such an exciting experience.
Oh man, that is great to hear. Thank you guys all for those answers. And so now I want to get a sense of kind of the day-to-day life of an ACE ambassador. So if you guys could, if you don't mind, walk us through just kind of some of your responsibilities as an off-campus intern, and kind of some of the things that you've done during your senior year as a part of the ambassador experience. So maybe give us just a quick, brief sense of what those responsibilities are, and then maybe share one highlight from the work this year, and something that surprised you about being an ambassador, if that makes sense.
I can start this time and shake it up if you don't want to go, Brennan. Yeah, okay. The responsibilities of an ambassador are pretty great. Honestly, you start by getting to go to Notre Dame for a week during the summer and get to see the current ACE cohort, like going through and learn a lot and meet the team and meet each other and spend some time together. It was my first time in South Bend or on campus at Notre Dame, and just like fell in love with it. And I think that made it so much easier for me to come back to Creighton after that and serve in this off-campus role where I'm not at Notre Dame, but I like have this piece of ACE with me that I carry around and talk to people about. So then your responsibility, besides like having an event during your fall semester, hosting an ACE kind of recruitment style event, has been for me really to just be talking about it with people who I think would be good, and just kind of with everybody, because you get the question a million times your senior year of what are you doing next year, and you get to talk about this awesome position with Notre Dame and serving in schools and trying out teaching and doing all these things and being a graduate student. It's like it can kind of cater to everybody. So you talk to a lot of people about it and you host your event. My highlight, I've had lots of highlights, but if I'm sharing one, it actually was like just last week, Creighton had like for the first time they had like a spring career fair. And I was like, oh, well, ACE can just like have a table. So I got to work the ACE table at the Creighton Career Fair for 3 hours and talk to like all my friends who came by the table and talk to them about ACE and get them to sign up, and like met a bunch of people. So it's a blast. I love talking about this thing. It's been super fun.
I can go next. So, like Henry said, we started out by going to campus and just seeing sort of the daily life of like an ACE student was really cool to be able to communicate that firsthand to the students that you're talking to, as opposed to having it just be like a really theoretical thing. When I was back on campus, I would say that my highlight was I hosted an event where I just set up a table in the student center and I had thank you notes to like write to a professor on campus about how they impacted you. And that was really cool just to give students the opportunity to realize like how big of a impact that their teachers had had on them. And then using that to sort of transition into talking about how they as a teacher could have an impact on other students. And then in addition to that, just sort of the day to day, like wearing my A shirt, which Brennan is repping right now, and like having the pin on my backpack and having my water bottle and just being so excited to tell people. I've also really loved talking to freshmen and sophomores about the program because I needed that time to discern when I was a sophomore. Like I needed the whole year to think about it. So getting to talk to people sort of early on has been really, really cool. And then seeing people that I've talked to like really consider applying and apply and talk about applying next year has just been super exciting, and getting to continue to be a resource for them has just been a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, that word resource is like what I have written down here when I was thinking about this question, like being really like a friend and a resource to all the people that you come across. Like Henry and Jess mentioned, like there's a big event that each ambassador will hold, and also you'll work things like the career fair and other similar events, but there's a lot more small things that you get to do on like the daily level. I probably sent hundreds of emails out to people, just letting them know of events that are coming up in the future that I'm hosting. But also like Henry mentioned, just like being that person that's like, hey, have you ever thought about teaching, or like have you heard of ACE? Because like even just planting a seed that's small, especially for someone who is like a freshman and a sophomore, can just grow and blossom. A real highlight for me was working. BC has like the post-grad service fair, and that's like the career fair that ACE has a table at, and so I got to work that. And I think I grew a lot from that because I got to work it with someone who had just finished ACE and is now a grad student here at BC. So I got to learn a lot about the ACE just process and experience, but also again talking to people with that common goal of like trying to serve underprivileged students and helping to recruit those teachers that will eventually go on to serve those students was a really great experience.
Oh, awesome. That's wonderful. And I didn't even notice, Brennan, that you were wearing the ACE shirt until Jesse said something. So bonus points to you. You get the gold star for that. So my last question for you guys before we turn it over to our guests, just in terms of next steps, and now that the beginning of your first ACE summer is only a few short months away, what are you looking forward to the most about this ACE experience that's coming up for you?
I can start this one. I'm really excited to meet the rest of our cohort and get to know everyone. Getting to just talk to the other interns and ambassadors when we were on campus over the summer was just so cool. And coming from such a tiny campus, I'm so used to just knowing most people around my, or like having like 1 degree of separation from everyone I meet. So just meeting totally new people who had such like cool experiences and backgrounds and interests was so exciting. And I think I'm also really excited for the spiritual growth. Getting to go to mass when we were out there was so amazing, and getting to be surrounded by people who were committed to Catholic education was just such an awesome experience. So I'm just so excited to find out our placements and just really get to know my community and to get to know the rest of our cohort, who are going to be such important people in our lives. So just so exciting that all that is like in the future so imminently.
Yeah, I have a pretty similar answer to Jess. I'm certainly excited to find out the placement, but I also think just like getting to campus in South Bend, and also wherever it is that I'm placed, like getting to meet and live with that community of people. I think it's a unique advantage of like the ambassador and intern role that we'll already know each other going into the summer. And like Henry mentioned, that early commit institute where you go in the summer in between your junior and senior year. And I think that just getting to like to further those relationships while also making a bunch of new ones and taking on those experiences with people that you know are also going through it for the first time is something that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'd echo what both Jesse and Brennan said. Like getting to know the people is going to be awesome. I think what I'm looking forward to most is actually, weirdly enough, what I'm also most nervous for, which is like this full-time job of teaching. that I whatever am like only a couple of years into thinking about. I'm excited to be like a young teacher in a school that needs me and that I need. I think I'm gonna learn. I'm counting on learning even more from the students than I would ever hope to teach them. So I'm excited. I'm like nervous, but I trust that the ACE summer, like that our first summer is gonna be wild, but also like totally preparatory. Like it's gonna be exactly what it needs to be. So I'm pumped for the people, and like just really excited to dive into the community that I'm in and the job that I'm gonna have.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Thank you, guys. So we'll take this part of the evening now to turn it over to all of you, our guests, to ask questions of the ambassadors we have in front of us. So if you could just go ahead and raise your Zoom hand once you have a question, then Mike or I will call on you, and then you can go ahead and ask your question. I love the silence. This is taking me back to my days in the middle school classroom. Yeah, Matthew, go ahead, man.
Hi, thank you all so much. I was like curious about it sounds so amazing that like a week of prep you guys did on campus. I would love to hear more about that. Like the fellowship ACE is one of the amazing things that separates this program from all the other programs. And so I'd love to hear more about how you're just like 1 week into it. I'd love to hear about that first experience. Thank you for your time.
No, that's a great question. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, and then you guys feel free to jump in whenever you'd like.
Me? I think that early commit institute, I really loved it. We all got there on the same day. And that first day was kind of just like meeting each other. Some icebreakers that were awkward at first got less awkward as we went on. And then I think the institute as a whole is kind of like just getting a glimpse into what an ACE summer is really like. So we got to sit in on some of the classes. And it was like specific towards what we might want to teach. So like I got to sit in on like a math specific class because I'm a computer science major. And we also like went to mass on campus. But there's also a good amount of time that's left just for us to like hang out together. Yeah, I don't know if Henry or Jess, you guys want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, Brennan covered it really well. You learn you learn more about the program, but you also kind of get the feel for what it is to be an ACE teacher. So, it was awesome. Like I even being on this call with these two has made me so happy. Like we do monthly calls with the ambassador community then. So it's like you've got 9 plus the other like 9 or 10 ambassador or interns that are at Notre Dame already, like 18, 20, that's like a fifth of your class, like that you're already good friends with, walking in then to your ACE retreat in April before you'd start in June. So that week was like probably a highlight of my summer, getting to be there and meet these people that like not only are we going to be together the next 2 years, it's like you see how the ACE team interacts and the ACE cohort, and you're like, oh wow, these people are going to stay friends for like a really long time. So that's what I loved the most about it, but it was great.
I would echo all of that. I just thought it was so cool being out there. And I think what Henry was saying about just sort of getting the vibe and getting oriented, because it's such a jam-packed schedule, just from what we saw over the ACE summer. So getting like a little glimpse of that, I feel like has made me like nervous, but also like excited about the ACE summers. And I feel like maybe a little bit more mentally prepared. And yeah, just getting to meet everyone was so exciting and so fun.
Awesome.
Also, sorry if I can add one more thing. I know I was nervous about like what the ambassador role itself looked like, and we got some training into like how to hold an info session, like how to make those slides, how to like plan an event. And we got to do that collaboratively, both with people on the ACE team and with the other ambassadors. So that was something that like really put me at ease going into the actual school year.
No. Yeah, that's a great point. I appreciate you making that, Brennan. Great, awesome. Feel free, other questions. Go ahead, raise those Zoom hands now. Yeah, Sam, go for it.
Hey, Tyus. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. My question is more towards Henry because it's kind of a similar situation to where I am. You didn't know you want to be in education. You're not an education major or anything like that. So how are you preparing besides what the ambassador role is preparing you for? How are you preparing for a role in teaching from not having that designed for you throughout college? Yeah.
This is a question that I think that I continue to think about all the time. So thanks for raising it, Sam. And I should have talked about it earlier, because the ambassadorship has actually helped me a lot with this. So I feel like the ambassador role, I was not nervous for. The recruiting, that's totally fine. I'm like way more nervous to be a teacher, but as an ACE ambassador, like it just put it in my mind early in the summer then of like, okay, I should try to do some service or do some tutoring to get myself in a classroom my senior year. So I like go to a couple different schools throughout the week, like every week at Creighton, just to kind of like be around students and get what that feels like and sort of learn just the intangible skills, just to start to learn the intangibles of like, what does it mean to be in a classroom? What does it mean to be instructing people? And then actually this year, at least, ACE partnered with another organization at Notre Dame called Tutor ND to work with students at some ACE schools around the country, and also students like of Notre Dame families of people who work at Notre Dame, to just do some offline tutoring with them. So I've been with I was with a fourth grader last semester in Sacramento, California, and now I'm with like a third grader in South Bend, like doing reading and kind of like, okay, this is how I would maybe plan a lesson for like 30 minutes, or this is what I would need to do, or like, oh, how do you actually teach how to like pronounce a word? So it was really cool. Like I've really loved doing that, and it's made me feel not like completely at ease, but a lot more at ease about the idea of being in a classroom for 8 hours a day. Thanks. And
Yeah, no, thank you for answering that question clearly.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. And I noticed as soon as Henry brought up Tutor ND, Brennan like gave a big old fist bump. I think it's the first time anyone's ever been excited about tutoring in the history of the world. So that's awesome. Thank you for that, Brennan. Yeah, we got some time for some more questions. Please go ahead, raise those Zoom hands.
I had a really great time earlier today talking about parallelograms with my 8th grade student. That's why I was pumped.
I just don't believe you. As a former English teacher, I don't think it's possible to have a good time talking about parallelograms, but I'm glad you think so. Yeah, Genevieve, go ahead.
Awesome. Hello. I have a question regarding the time commitment as an ambassador and how that plays out on your respective campuses. And then I'm also curious as to whether when you're sharing about ACE, if you're sharing it with mainly people that you know in various circles, classes, and whatnot, or just people completely new on campus. Thank you.
I can sort of answer this one. In terms of time commitment, I found that it sort of fluctuated week to week based on like who you were talking to, how many students you had who were interested, and also like as those application deadlines were approaching. So like there was one early November and then one late January. So as those deadlines were approaching, I found that like I was definitely going more hardcore, or in preparing for my event, I found that it was more of a time commitment there. And then in terms of who we were recruiting, we had a lot of fun actually while we were at the Early Commit Institute, just like really brainstorming and try to think creatively of different groups of students we could pull from. So I go to a pretty small school, so I got to like reach out to different departments and feel like pretty confident that I was reaching like a wide array of students. So I definitely didn't just want to reach out to people that I know. So I worked with like the nursing school to try to get some people who were interested in STEM, but not sure if they wanted to enter straight into medical care. And then I also worked with like our community service facilitator on campus. I worked with our campus ministry. I worked with our education department. I worked with our intercultural center. So I really tried to think creatively about how to reach a wide array of students, in addition to obviously telling all my friends that they should apply and how cool the program was.
Yeah, I can go next. Genevieve, I think you raised a really important question. Like time commitment wise, it's like it's not anything arduous, I would say. It's like it's dedicating yourself to ACE when like the opportunity arises. So it's not like you're gonna skip an event that you plan, or like that you're not gonna have a conversation with somebody about it or something like that. But it's definitely nothing that has like taken away from any experiences I could have had my senior year of college. It's just like this great addition that's helping me like plan and think about the next step as well. But I think your question about like people you know versus new people is actually a really important balance that depends a lot on your campus. So like I knew like right off the bat at Early Commit Institute, or even before that, I was like, okay, like I know that these 5 or 6 people like would be awesome for ACE, and probably just need somebody to have that conversation with them of like, have you ever thought about teaching? I'm like, well, there's this great program. So like that's how I've led. Most of the people who actually ended up applying from Creighton have come from those kind of one-on-one conversations, a little bit longer, a little bit more explanatory. Here's what this is, kind of friend to friend. And then you can kind of get the quick touches on the spot sophomores and juniors, especially even freshmen, like at those events, or if you have a table or something, or you're in passing, or somebody asks you about your t-shirt or whatever, like you can be like, oh yeah, that's what this is. And then it kind of can almost spark. So then it's like in those instances, it's been like, yeah, I'll give them my phone number or give them my email or whatever, and we can talk about it later. But you do both.
Yeah, I think Henry and Jess said it well. In terms of time commitments, it's definitely times where it spikes. Like if you're closer to an event you're planning or closer to one of the deadlines. But in general, it's like Henry said, it's not something that's kept me from like staying focused on my classes or like enjoying the time I have with my friends during senior year. And then in terms of who you're talking to, like again, like Jess said, I definitely told all of my friends about it and that they should go check it out. But also like there's a lot of really small things. Like whenever I had an event coming up, I would just kind of like ask the teacher to make an announcement in front of each of my classes to say, okay, this is something just like to have on your radar. And then also, as they both said, it's like connecting one-on-one with people, and but also like using the connections that you have on campus with different organizations. One of the things I really liked about that Early Commit Institute is that we intentionally plan to try to recruit people that like don't necessarily run in like the same like circles or like clubs or majors and minors as us, because like we're going to run into those people on a day-to-day basis anyway. But what we need to be really intentional about is like reaching out to those people who we might not run into. That's something that like you generate a plan for at that Early Commit Institute, and I walked away from that feeling like it was like very reasonable and like approachable.
That's great. Thank you to the 3 of you. I think we have time for one final question. So if you got one more question, go ahead, raise the Zoom hand, and we can have it answered. Yeah, Mike, close us out, man.
Hi, everybody. This is more, I guess, more of a practical question, sort of about the application procedure. Sort of as you were going through the application and asking people for letters of recommendation, this is a sort of different grad program with different emphasis on, spirituality and community from what probably most professors are used to writing about for, just a regular master's or PhD or sort of academic program. So I guess my question would be sort of how did you describe the program to folks like that as recommenders, or how did you sort of describe the different motivation behind this program and sort of frame your application and the recommenders who'd be helping on your application toward a sort of proper orientation?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mike.
So for me, ACE has is pretty well known on my campus just because we've had like a decent number of faculty and administration who went through the program. So that definitely helped. And at the Early Commit Institute, like you talk a little bit about like connecting with people at your school who are familiar with the program. So if you do know anyone at your school who has been through the program or former students who have done it, that's a super helpful resource. I think also I tried to talk to the professors and different recommenders in person about what I was personally passionate about the program. In addition to like sending them resources from the website and like going through sort of what the expectations set forth in the recommendation were. But I think that really talking about what sticks out about the program to you is helpful to them in the recommendation process.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say something really similar, Jess. Of the 4 people that recommended, that wrote my recommendations, only one of them knew what ACE was in advance. And ACE is pretty well known here at BC already, but across all 4, I like asked to have a meeting just one-on-one with them and sent them some information, like Jess said, ahead of time. And then in that meeting, I really just talked more about like myself and how I arrived at ACE and like why I was feeling called to it. And obviously through that, a lot of information about the program itself came out.
Yeah, I'd second what both Jess and Brennan said. no one knows about ACE at Creighton, really. It was interesting, like, or not very many people anyway. None of my recommenders did. So I did the same, like reached out to people who I felt like really knew me, and then almost described it in different ways to each of them, of like, okay, to the campus minister, like, this is a postgraduate service program, right, that I'm discerning and entering into, to like the roommate that I lived with, like, this is the job that I want to do after graduation, and they like, it requires living in a house with other people. So and then to the professors, it's like, you know, it's academic, but it's also service, and it's learning, and it's all of it. So you can explain ACE in lots of different ways, and I think it was good practice for me to kind of do that with my recommenders. But I would say, like, if you're debating between a couple of recommenders about, like, maybe you did one really well in one of them's class or something, but the other one you feel like maybe knows you a little bit better, is your academic advisor or something, even if you haven't had a class with them for a couple of years. I think that tends to be a very important part of ACE, is like getting to know you as a person. So for what that's worth.
Yeah, no, it was a great question, Mike, and everyone that asked questions, they're phenomenal. So thank you all for those questions. That is all the time we're going to have for tonight. So if any other questions or thoughts do arise in the coming days, weeks, month, I think everyone will have my email. And if not, I'll send out a follow-up email in the next couple of days from tonight. So you will have my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm always happy to help with anything. But with that, I just want to send one final reminder that the ambassador application will be closing March 28th. So it's open now. You can start your application, submit it at any time between now and the 28th, but just want to make sure that date, March 28th, is on your radar. So thank you all for being with us tonight, and hope you have a great rest of your evening.